Have you ever felt busy all day, yet still like you weren't living for yourself? Your calendar's packed. Your phone never stops buzzing. You're trying to do everything right. Showing up, being responsible, meeting expectations. But deep down, something feels off. Not because you're lazy, but because every day, you're giving your energy to things that no longer align with you. And you don't even realize it's being taken. That's the part no one tells you. When you stop leading your life with clarity, the world will quietly start doing it for you. And it won't ask for permission. If that hits you somewhere deep, you're in the right place. This video isn't motivation. It's a reality check. For the men who are silently burning out behind the appearance of success. Because the truth is, you're not exhausted because you're doing too much. You're exhausted because you've been doing too much of what doesn't serve you. And if you don't reclaim command of your inner world, the chaos outside will keep breaking you into smaller and smaller pieces. In the next 6 tactics, I'm going to show you how to build internal focus like a fortress. You'll learn how to protect your energy, eliminate noise, cut emotional drains, rebuild clarity, and restore your strength at the level that actually matters. Your mind. This isn't philosophy. This is strategy. For the man who's done being pulled in every direction and is finally ready to anchor down and lead. So before we begin, I want to ask you one thing. Are you ready to take your focus back? If you are, drop a comment below that says, "I'm ready to command," not just to signal engagement, but to set a personal boundary. Draw your line in the sand. Let this be the moment it all turns. Because your power was never gone. It was just scattered. Now you gather it back. And you lead. Tactic 1. Command your energy. Every strong man I know starts his day in silence. Not by accident, but by necessity. Not the silence of peace. The silence of reclaiming control. Because the modern world doesn't knock on your door. It barges in, loud, fast, and demanding everything. Your attention, your time, your reaction. And if you don't take command of your energy the moment you wake up, the world will assign it a purpose that doesn't serve you. Ethan didn't always get this. He was the guy who showed up early, stayed late, said yes to every request, every call, every meeting. He didn't realize he was bleeding out. Not from failure, but from overexposure. His calendar was full, but his clarity was gone. His to-do list stretched for miles, but his soul sat idle in the passenger seat. What made it worse was that on the outside, it looked like success. People respected his responsiveness. Clients praised his dedication. His team leaned on him for answers. But deep down, Ethan was exhausted. Not tired. Hollow. Because every time he gave his energy away without purpose, he gave away a piece of his identity. And like most men drowning in silent burnout, he kept pushing forward. Thinking he needed better time management, when what he really needed was an energy revolution. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up, if thou wilt always look." Aye, but how can you look inward when every second, something out there is trying to steal your gaze? That was Ethan's dilemma. Until the day his body forced him to stop. It wasn't dramatic. No collapse. No meltdown. Just a Tuesday afternoon. He sat in his car, engine running, phone buzzing, and for the life of him, he couldn't remember where he was going. That was the moment. Not a breakdown. A breakthrough. He realized, I've given everyone else a version of me. But I've forgotten what it feels like to have something left for myself. So Ethan did something most men never have the courage to do. He withdrew. Not to hide, but to rebuild. He canceled meetings, set boundaries, declared time blocks that were sacred. He didn't post about it. He didn't explain it. He just began. 1 silent hour a day. 1 full weekend a month. No permission asked. No applause required. And slowly, something returned. Not motivation, but command. He wasn't just managing time anymore. He was guarding it, channeling it, deciding who earned access to it, He stopped explaining his availability, stopped apologizing for needing space, because he understood now. Your energy is your responsibility. If you don't protect it, someone else will spend it. Commanding your energy isn't about control. It's about consequence. Every yes you give has a cost. Every quick call, every "can you just help real quick" adds up. Not in your calendar, in your soul. And what most men call burnout is just bankruptcy from too many unpaid withdrawals. You want to transform your life? Start with what drains you. Audit what gets your attention. Who interrupts your mornings? What apps consume your peace? And ask the most brutal question: did I choose this? Or was it assigned to me? Because the man who does not command his energy will always be commanded by someone else's urgency. Ethan learned the hard way. But he learned. And now? He doesn't rise earlier to hustle harder. He rises to protect his presence. And that presence, calm, focused, unshakable, is what the world now feels when he enters a room. You don't need more hours. You need fewer leaks. Command your energy, or someone else will. Tactic 2, detach from applause. Let me guess. You've spent years trying to be the man people admire. Not for vanity, but for validation. Because deep down, we've all been trained to believe that being seen means being worthy. That applause equals arrival. That recognition is proof we matter. Caleb believed that too. A gifted writer in his early 30s, he built an audience fast. His words hit hard. Truthful, raw, poetic. And with every post, every article, every quote that went viral, something in him lit up. Not because he was arrogant, but because the noise felt like meaning. The hearts, the shares, the late-night messages telling him he changed someone's life. It felt like impact. It felt like purpose. Until it didn't. One morning, Caleb posted something different. Less polished, more personal. It didn't get traction. The algorithm ignored it. The usual comments didn't flood in. He refreshed the page again and again, and when silence stayed, something deeper cracked. He questioned himself, not the post. Maybe I'm losing it. Maybe I'm not relevant anymore. And that was the moment it hit him. I've built my identity on applause I can't control. Abu. Nobody tells you this, but the quickest way to lose yourself is to let the crowd define your reflection. When the cheers are loud, you feel invincible. But when they stop, even for a moment, you feel invisible. And that's the trap. Because the moment you need their claps to keep going, you've handed over your command. Marcus Aurelius once said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more. That is poor." In Caleb's case, he didn't crave wealth. He craved response. And that's its own kind of poverty. We live in a culture obsessed with visibility. But here's the hard truth. Being seen is not the same as being anchored. And the men who build their self-worth on approval, on being liked, shared, noticed, are always one bad day away from collapse. So Caleb disappeared. Not from life, but from the addiction to reaction. He stopped posting for attention. He started writing only for himself again. Mornings with a notebook. No likes. No shares. Just pen to page and silence. At first, it felt like irrelevance. Then it felt like freedom. Because what he found in that silence was weight. His thoughts weren't curated for virality. They were real. They were messy. They were his. And that was enough. You see, when you detach from applause, you begin to hear something else. Your own voice. Clearer. Stronger. Not performing. Not pleasing. Just present. And with that presence comes a strange, unshakable power. The world no longer gets to decide when you feel valuable. You do. So here's the question you have to face. Would you still do what you love if no one ever saw it? Would you still write, build, speak, lead if no one ever clapped? Because the answer to that reveals whether you're driven by purpose or puppeteered by praise, Caleb is still writing, still sharing. But now, applause is not the fuel. It's the echo. And if it never comes again, he's still enough. Because he already reclaimed what he once outsourced, his worth. Detaching from applause doesn't make you colder. It makes you cleaner. Cleaner in intent. Sharper in focus. Stronger in stillness. And that kind of man, the one who doesn't need to be seen, is the one who's impossible to ignore. Stop chasing echoes. Start trusting your voice. Detach from applause. Command your meaning. Be honest. Have you ever tied your self-worth to how others react to you? If that hit home, drop a comment. No more borrowed validation. Avivra. Let that be your first quiet rebellion. Tactic 3. Cut the strings. Most people think they're making their own decisions. They wake up, check their phones, respond to messages, scroll, nod, react. They move through their day like it's theirs. But it's not. Because what they don't realize is this: if you don't control your attention, someone else already does. Nathan thought he was in charge. As a team lead in a growing company, he handled meetings, deadlines, team drama, and executive pressure like a pro. But something had shifted. He wasn't thinking anymore. He was reacting, constantly bouncing between messages, Slack pings, HR whispers, performance reviews, and subtle political landmines. Every day, a new fire to put out. Every night, a mind too exhausted to think, but too wired to rest. Until one day, he caught himself doing something terrifying. He was in a meeting, nodding, smiling, agreeing. But deep down, he didn't agree at all. He knew the strategy was wrong, but he didn't speak up. Not because he was afraid, but because he was already spent, mentally hijacked, emotionally overdrawn. And that's when it hit him. I'm not leading. I'm dancing on strings. Oh, you've been lied to. They told you leadership is about being available, responsive, collaborative, but no one tells you what happens when your attention is pulled in 10 directions at once. You stop being intentional. You start being manipulated, not with malice, but through constant disruption, notifications, guilt trips, fake urgency, toxic loyalty, subtle emotional hooks dressed as just checking in. They don't want you present. They want you compliant. Epictetus warned us, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. End of teen. The truth isn't that people steal your peace. It's that you hand it over in exchange for approval, for comfort, for not rocking the boat. Nathan realized he didn't need to explode to take his power back. He just needed to unplug. Quietly. Strategically. He stopped responding to every ping. He removed himself from gossip loops. He stopped explaining decisions to people who didn't need context. And slowly, his thoughts returned. His judgment sharpened. His presence deepened. He didn't cut people off with anger. He cut the strings with clarity. Because here's what most men never learn. Control doesn't always look like command. Sometimes, it looks like withdrawal. The best chess players don't play every piece. They protect their queen. And in life, your queen is your focus. If you give it away for free, don't be surprised when people treat it like it's worthless. So here's the truth. If your peace is constantly interrupted, it's not because life is chaotic. It's because you've left the door unlocked. You're letting every text, every meeting, every request walk straight into your mental fortress without earning it. You want to reclaim your clarity? Start here. Audit your strings. Who pulls at you? Who demands urgency? Who triggers guilt? Who asks for just a minute every single day? Then cut, quietly, without fanfare, without permission, because the man who cuts the strings, not out of rage, but out of purpose, is the man who starts thinking for himself again. And in a world designed to keep you distracted, A man who can still focus is a man who becomes dangerous. Nathan didn't quit his job. He didn't disappear. He simply stopped dancing. And now when he speaks, people listen. When he's quiet, people wonder. Because they can feel it. He's not being pulled anymore. He's anchored. Cut the strings. Reclaim your focus. Think for yourself. Again. Tactic 4. Discipline is control. Here's the hard truth most men avoid. If you don't build structure, chaos will build itself. Reed never lacked ambition. He was the type who could go days without sleep if a deadline was near. The kind of startup founder who could pitch investors at noon, lead team stand-ups at 2, and code until 3 a.m. His life moved fast, but underneath the productivity was panic. His wins were real, but so were the mood swings, the burnout cycles, the creeping dread that came every time things got quiet. He thought he was operating at a high level. In truth, he was just surviving at a high speed. Because without structure, without discipline, you're not leading your life. You're running from the fear of falling behind. Reed didn't need more motivation. He needed command, not over his business, but over himself. We live in a culture that glorifies flexibility, freedom, and flow. But here's what they don't say. Flow without form leads to erosion. And freedom without structure is a slow suicide. Seneca once wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." But mastery doesn't appear in chaos. It's forged through repetition, through constraint, through waking up and doing the thing, even when no one's watching, especially when you don't feel like it. That was Reed's turning point. Not an investor walking away. Not a team member quitting. It was a quiet Saturday morning when he looked in the mirror and realized, "I've built a business I can't breathe in. And the only reason it's unstable is because I am." End quote. So he stopped chasing balance and started building a system. A personal operating rhythm. 6 a.m. Wake up. Negative minute deep work sprints. No phone before noon. 3 workouts a week. No alcohol on weekdays. A daily shutdown ritual. Same time. No exceptions. At first, it felt mechanical. But within a month, he felt something different. Control. Not fake control. The kind that looks good on calendars and LinkedIn posts. Real control. The kind where your mind no longer wanders at 2 a.m. The kind where decisions don't feel reactive, but rooted. The kind where discipline becomes a relief, not a burden. Because now, you know exactly where your time, focus, and energy are going. Because discipline is not about rigidity. It's about reliability. The man who can rely on himself, who doesn't need perfect conditions, external pressure, or emotional spikes to execute, is the man who's already ahead of 99% of people who are still waiting to feel ready. End 1. Let me be clear. Discipline isn't sexy. It's boring. Repetitive. Quiet. But that's exactly what makes it unstoppable. Because emotion fades. Willpower fades. But systems, they endure. So if your life feels out of control, don't ask what's broken. Ask what's missing. Most likely, it's not more talent, more time, or more luck. It's discipline. Quiet. Personal. Uncompromising. Reed didn't become a monk. He didn't become robotic. He became reliable. And now, people around him trust him more. Not because he works harder, but because he shows up the same, whether it's raining, shining, exciting, or dull. That's power. Not the kind that roars. The kind that repeats. The kind that holds. You don't rise by doing more. You rise by doing what matters. On command. Discipline is not restriction. It's your final defense against the chaos you used to call normal. Build it. Guard it. Become it. Most men wait until their life collapses before they build structure. What's one daily habit you know you need, but haven't fully committed to? Drop it below. No judgment, just ownership. Tactic 5. Solitude is strategy. Nobody teaches men how to sit with themselves. They teach you how to perform, how to chase, how to impress, but not how to be alone. Fully alone. Without the phone, without the noise, without someone validating your existence. And yet, solitude is the place where all great men sharpen their edge. Micah knew noise. He lived in it for years. A high-level investor, always surrounded by voices. Pitch decks, calls, clinking glasses, powerful people talking fast. And for a while, it worked. He made money, built influence. Everyone wanted his time. Until something strange started happening. He began to feel invisible in his own life. Conversations drained him. Weekends felt like obligations. And even when he was alone, he wasn't really alone. His mind was still hosting everyone else's expectations. So he did what most men are terrified to do. He vanished. Not out of spite. Not as an act of rebellion. But as an act of war. He turned off his phone. Cleared 2 weeks on his calendar. Rented a small cabin 4 hours outside the city. Just him, a journal, and the sound of himself breathing. No signal. No input. Just space. And on the third day, something happened. Something terrifying. The silence got loud. All the unresolved questions he'd buried under noise came roaring back. Who am I without productivity? Without status? Without praise? For a few hours, he almost gave up. Almost called it all off. But instead, he stayed. He sat with the questions. And eventually, answers came. Not from above. Not from some divine breakthrough. But from within. From the voice that had been drowned out for years. The voice of a man he used to be before the world told him who to become. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." True. But that kind of clarity doesn't come from more podcasts, more scrolling, more advice. It comes from strategic isolation. It comes from stepping back so you can see clearly. Not just what you're doing, but who you're becoming. Micah didn't come back enlightened. He came back recalibrated. He no longer needed to respond to every invitation. He stopped feeling guilty for declining calls. He replaced urgency with intention. And suddenly, life felt lighter. Not because it got easier, but because he stopped carrying what wasn't his. Solitude, when chosen, not forced, is not a weakness. It's a tactical reset. It's where leaders regroup. It's where clarity becomes louder than the culture. And in a world that's addicted to attention, the man who disappears, on purpose, is the man who becomes impossible to manipulate. Because here's the truth most men avoid. The more people you let into your space, the less you hear your own command. So step back. Don't wait until burnout. Don't wait until life rips it from you. Take it intentionally. An hour, a day, a week. Turn off the noise. Be unavailable. And watch what rises in its place. Not emptiness, but awareness. Micah doesn't need the world to see him every day anymore. Because when he does speak, when he does move, it's deliberate. That's the power of solitude. It doesn't make you soft. It makes you surgical. You don't need to disappear forever. You just need to reclaim enough space to hear your own voice above the volume of everyone else's. Solitude is not retreat. It's reconnaissance. Use it. Or be used by the noise you never escaped. Tactic 6. Remove energy leaks. It starts small. One unreturned call you feel guilty about. One friend you keep around out of obligation. One meeting you agree to, even though you know it's a waste. Then another. Then another. And suddenly, your life is full, but your soul is empty. Omar didn't lack drive. He had a steady business, a loyal team, a respectable life. But every day, he felt more and more like a man losing something he couldn't name. It wasn't burnout. He wasn't overworking. It wasn't depression either. He was functioning, smiling, showing up. But under the surface, there was this constant hum, an invisible fatigue, like carrying weight that no one else could see. And then one morning, he heard himself say something in a call that stopped him cold. "Yeah, no worries. I've got it." He didn't. He didn't have it. He didn't want it. But he said it anyway. Out of habit. Out of fear of disappointing someone. Out of that quiet, relentless conditioning that says a good man handles everything. That's when it hit him. It's not my work that's draining me. It's my tolerance. We don't fall apart because of massive burdens. We fall apart from 1,000 slow leaks. People we should have released months ago. Conversations we keep repeating. Obligations we said yes to once, but never questioned again. And worst of all, the stories we tell ourselves about who we're supposed to be. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Ask yourself, is this essential?" Most men never ask that. They assume every commitment must be kept. Every relationship must be maintained. Every tie must stay intact. But here's the truth. Some people are not your responsibility. Some tasks are not your mission. Some memories are not your identity. Omar didn't burn his life down. He audited it. Quietly. Precisely. He made a list of every person, every commitment, every mental tab he kept open. Then he asked one question. Does this give me energy? Or drain it? That single filter changed everything. He ended 2 partnerships. Not out of hate, but misalignment. He stopped accepting last-minute calls, just to catch up. He stopped fixing things that were never his to fix. And more importantly, he stopped apologizing for protecting his peace. Because energy leaks don't just make you tired. They make you hesitant, unfocused, bitter. They turn strong men into resentful ones. They break your edge. Not with an explosion, but with a slow erosion of your conviction. You can't lead when you're leaking. You can't build when your attention is scattered across 100 invisible commitments. So here's the call. Audit your life like a battlefield. Not everything is worth defending. Not everyone gets to walk into your space and set up camp. Make space. Not for minimalism, but for force. Clean, directed, unapologetic force. The kind that builds. The kind that lasts. Omar didn't become colder. He became cleaner, sharper, lighter. And now, he doesn't move fast. But he moves with precision. He doesn't say yes quickly. But when he does, it's full power. No leaks. You don't need to do less. You need to stop tolerating what weakens you. Seal the leaks. Reclaim your power. At some point, every man must decide. Will I keep surviving in chaos or rise to command within it? You've seen the signs. You've felt the fatigue. And now, you've been given the tools. Not surface-level hacks. Not motivational noise. But real tactics. Built on discipline, clarity, and emotional control. You don't need to fix the world. You just need to stop letting it hijack your attention. You don't need to become louder. You just need to become impossible to shake. Ethan took back his energy. Caleb stopped performing for applause. Nathan cut the strings of hidden manipulation. Reed turned structure into power. Micah turned silence into strategy. Omar sealed the leaks that were quietly bleeding him dry. Now it's your move. Not to imitate them, but to take command of the areas in your own life where you've been giving power away for too long. Because no one is coming to protect your focus. No one is responsible for your edge. It's you, and only you. So ask yourself, right now, which of the 6 tactics hit you hardest? Which one felt personal? Which one exposed something you've been tolerating? Drop it in the comments. Declare it, then build around it. Because men who move with quiet command shape the world without needing permission. You don't need more time. You need more ownership. You don't need more applause. You need more control. And control begins with a decision. I am no longer available for chaos. I lead now. Quietly, sharply, fully. Which tactic are you ready to master? Let the world know, and then disappear into the work.